In this video, I will do 3 things. First of all, I will explain to you what narcissism is and how it develops. And make no mistake, you're a narcissist as well. After that, I will tell you why that can be a problem. And then of course, third of all, I will give you a solution to how you become less narcissistic and more empathetic towards others. Now, rightfully so, you might ask yourself, Simon, why the hell should I listen to you? The thing is, quite some time ago, I've been told by a friend that I'm probably a little bit more narcissistic than it is optimal. And after hearing that, I dug into it myself and tried fixing that with success. And so in this video, I will give you first of all my personal experience, all learnings from my personal experience, and then also of course compromised knowledge from like very smart people, which I have learned or just picked up upon along my journey. Before I do so, however, just quickly subscribe for more life-bettering content. Let's go over the first point. What is narcissism and how does it develop? First of all, in truth, we're all narcissistic. I mean, think about it. We're basically just survival machines, which are primarily obviously focused with ourselves. And so therefore, we all have narcissistic tendencies. It's just a spectrum. It's like nothing necessarily extreme or pathological. It's just a spectrum. And some people are deeper on the narcissistic end than others, but we all have narcissistic tendencies. Before I go into the development of narcissism, let's just quickly dive into attention, because attention is important for this. Attention, or like attention seeking, has kind of like a bad reputation in our society. There is a reason for that, of course. However, we all need attention. So essentially, seeking attention is not necessarily something bad. You can see how important attention is when looking at what happens to people when they don't get any. People have reported to essentially start doubting their existence when not getting like any recognition at all, even as basic as like eye contact. So it's deeply tied to self-worth and leads to some extreme behavior, for example, attempted suicide, which is quite heavy, of course. Now with attention, there's like one trap, so to speak, that a lot of people fall into, and it's that in order to get more attention, you have to go seek it out, which is not really the case. In reality, excessive neediness oftentimes is just repellent. Seeking it out will ultimately lead to you getting less of that. Now let's go over the development of narcissism. And so let's go into a self-love here, because you might think that very narcissistic people, so people very deep on the spectrum towards the narcissistic end, have just way too much self-love. But the reality is quite the contrary. As we as individuals mature, we kind of create this self-image, this concept of a self in our head, which of course emphasizes positive qualities about ourselves and oftentimes plays down more the negative ones. The sense of self is really important in times of loneliness, or when you just really have to soothe yourself, essentially. A healthy self-image is usually developed between the ages of 2 to 5 years old, and it oftentimes has to do a lot with our parents and qualities of them. And this period is critical, and here's where the problems for very deeply narcissistic people stems from, because they essentially lack this healthy self-image because of childhood problems like abandonment or enmeshment. And so it's just logical that when they need validation or something, they really can't just rely on that self-image, because they really have none, or at least a very broken one. And so what they need is validation from others and their attention. There's 4 types of narcissists that I quickly want to go over. The first one is the complete control narcissist. Those are highly ambitious but extremely insecure, and they often manipulate others in order to get attention. Their relationships are most of the time just shallow, and they destroy them if they feel threatened. The second one, and I think we all know somebody like this, is the theatrical narcissist. In order to get attention, those deep narcissists rely on drama and exaggeration, especially when it comes to their qualities. Oftentimes, they also play on empathy in order to gain that attention, so they might pose as the victim or something similar. The third one is a little bit more interesting. It's the narcissistic couple, because you can kind of say that a partnership has a sense of character as well. And a couple with a very dysfunctional dynamic, so to speak, or a very dysfunctional character of their partnership is often marked by a lack of empathy and mutual understanding. And this of course leads to constant suspicion and also just entrenched positions. Last one, the fourth one, is the healthy narcissist. Those are people which can feel strong empathy towards others, read and navigate the moods of others, and can just lead with kindness. Now that we've got all of that out of the way, let's go to the second main point of this video, which is, why is it necessarily bad? Here you can differentiate between you being a deep narcissist or people around you being deep narcissists. It can lead to unhealthy relationships because of this constant need for attention and admiration. And also maybe there's a sense of they have to feel superior to you, so it can turn toxic quite quickly. So be aware of deeply narcissistic friends, or also partners. Then if you're a deep narcissist, then your emotional well-being might be hindered to some extent, because this like attention or validation seeking approach induces a lot of anxiety, but it can of course also take away time from like productive tasks or destroy the relationships you like actually kind of want, but again, your desire for attention and admiration gets in the way of them. And this is tied to like a lack of empathy as well. Let's say, for example, your friend goes through a very hard phase right now and they open up towards you about it, and you really don't care or say anything or help them because you're just too focused with yourself and your own problems, and this will just lead to the relationship essentially breaking apart, which I think for both parties isn't necessarily the best thing. So now that we know it's bad, let's quickly go over some signs that show that you might be a little bit more narcissistic than you really want. People that are a little bit deeper on the narcissistic spectrum. Get angry or seek vengeance when they are criticized. React with righteous indignation or play the victim, just as we talked about earlier. They might exhibit extreme jealousy and have an inflated sense of like self-confidence. They view and use others as like tools in order to get attention and validation. They struggle to form deep and meaningful relationships. They frequently change jobs, partners, or friends. And what you want to look out the most are essentially narcissistic leaders, because oftentimes they're more ambitious than other people and are highly skilled at essentially just controlling them, manipulating them in order to get what they want. They can also create like an illusion of authenticity, but be aware, because those people ultimately most of the time have like a destructive impact on the organization they're working for. Now, if you just went like, oh shit, like I think I'm a little bit more of a deep narcissist than I would want to be, just like I did a while back, don't stress, there's hope, nothing is lost whatsoever, because there is an optimal state that we talked about earlier, and that is the healthy narcissist. Their self-image and attention-seeking behavior, so to speak, don't dominate their life and also not their relationships. So healthy narcissism allows you to be like actually successful, not only like in your career or whatever it is, but also like in your relationships. One last thing before we talk about how to become less narcissistic. As I hinted at before, self-love is essentially what deep narcissists lack, because you might think they have too much self-love, but as we now know, it's essentially that they don't have enough self-love. Their self-worth is pretty fragile, and so they need external validation. So, third point, how do you become less narcissistic? Very strong starting point here is just to like cultivate a healthy self-image. So you accept like your flaws. Of course, you can still work on them, but you accept them as a part of you, while at the same time celebrating your strengths in a healthy manner. But then of course there is developing empathy. And so here's 4 strategies for doing so. The first one is a empathetic attitude. You assume you don't fully understand others and are pretty open towards them. You're curious about their feelings, and at the same time you avoid like biases, like for example attributing failures of others to character flaws in them, while at the same time not doing the same with you and just saying it was like bad luck or whatever fucking coping excuse you want to use. This is about like mimicking others' like moods essentially, and you can do that by mimicking their gestures, their facial expressions, and through all of this you can like kind of understand how they feel. However, please be subtle with this, because if you like overdo it in that sense, then this seems like really creepy. The third strategy is analytical empathy, which is try to understand their values by looking at their history, behavior, and their relationships. And then the last one, the fourth one, which is the empathetic skill, because empathy is kind of like a skill, you can view it as such. What's crucial for developing a skill or becoming very good at it, it's feedback, both direct and indirect. Just pay attention to like the reactions of others and then adjust accordingly. Now, I really hope you learned something in this video. If you did, like and subscribe to the channel for like more life bettering content. And of course, you can also follow me on Instagram. The link for that is down in the description below. If you have any thoughts on this video, you can let me know via Instagram or under this video in the comment section. So please comment if you've got any thoughts. And with all of that being said, have a good fucking one and let's fucking go.